Welcome to the Gita in Action podcast. My name's Radha, and I'm here with our family of seekers. We're reading through the Bhagavad Gita, verse by verse. We've been at it now for almost 2 years. We are in chapter 11 today. And it just keeps unfolding, the Bhagavad Gita. And every time you read it, it's one of those texts, every time you read it, you connect with it like more deeply or differently depending on where you are in your life and your relationships. And so it's really it's just like a magical text that is transforming all of our lives as we study it together here. So thanks for being here, being on this journey with us. Today we're in chapter 11, the universal form. And a lot of us are kind of developing a new relationship with this chapter and a deeper appreciation. I know I am anyway. We are at the part where Krishna revealed his universal form, and Arjuna started apologizing because he's realizing just how great, just how powerful God is. And lo and behold, Arjuna has kind of just like treated him like a friend this whole time. And so he's just like kind of apologizing for his casual demeanor towards Krishna. And that's where we are in this particular section, and we're going to get deeper into it. But before we do that, let's have our prayers. Stella, when you're ready, can you say our prayers for us?
Certainly. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jana Jana Salakaya Chakshuranmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyeva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Hi. Beautiful. Thank you. So today, there's something in us that's naturally drawn towards power, isn't it? Like we admire people who seem larger than life, people that are super successful or influential, knowledgeable, super in control. And spiritually, we can sometimes approach God the same way. We want proof. We want certainty. We want a sign. We want something that's impressive enough to remove all of our doubt. And what we're seeing in this section of the Gita is that Arjuna gets exactly that. Krishna reveals the universal form, which is it's a vision so vast, overwhelming, and powerful. No one's ever seen it before. Arjuna sees countless universes, unlimited forms, like unimaginable power, even time and destruction itself unfolding before him, which was unparalleled to see the form of time. And we went through this journey with him. At first he was amazed. And then the more that he sees Krishna's greatness, the more humbled he becomes. And then he sees the Kala Rupa, the form of time, and he gets super overwhelming and even a little bit fearful. And then what happens, and this is where we're getting to now, is that the more overwhelming the vision becomes, the more his heart longs for something simpler, more personal, more intimate. And this is kind of going to be a big takeaway of today's class. That ultimately power can impress you, but relationship is what transforms you. And this is what we see Arjuna come back to seeking. He appreciates the greatness. He appreciates the awe-inspiring, powerful. But ultimately, he comes back and asks for his friend back. Asks for his friend that he can relate to and have a reciprocal relationship with. So this is the journey that we're going to explore today. Not just how great God is, but why the heart is ultimately searching for this connection, this trust, this intimacy and love. So we're going to start with text 43. We'll start with text 43. I'll share my screen. And when you're ready, Stella.
Okay. 43, you said?
Yes.
You are the father of this complete cosmic manifestation, of the moving and the non-moving. You are its worshipable chief, the supreme spiritual master. No one is greater than you, nor can anyone be one with you. How then could there be anyone greater than you within the three worlds, O Lord of immeasurable power?
Thank you. So at this point, Arjuna's realization is becoming very deep and very personal. He's no longer just amazed by Krishna's power, but he's recognizing Krishna's actual position. So he's saying here, you're the source of everything. Everything moving and non-moving comes from you. You're the one that everyone should ultimately look up to and learn from and worship. And you can almost like hear the humility in Arjuna's voice here. This is what we should hear. It's just like so much humility. Because earlier he was relating to Krishna very casually, more as a friend, a cousin, someone on his level, or even like a little below his level. He was relating to him, but now he's realizing, like, how could I have thought that you were ordinary? How could I have thought that anyone, including me, could somehow be greater than you? And honestly, this is something that we all do in different ways. We minimize God. We reduce him down to something manageable. Sometimes we'll treat him more like an idea or a symbol or like a background part of our life instead of recognizing the magnitude of who he actually is. I remember one time I was hanging out with my dad and I was like, Dad, do you want to read the Bible? He's like, no, it's not Sunday. Sunday's God's day. That's the day we read the Bible. And I was like, oh, okay. And this is just like such a normal part of our culture. It's like we have one day a week we commit to God in our time with God. And after that, he's more just like kind of in the background until that day rolls around again. And then it's back to, he's just like a part of our life. Which is nice, which is not bad necessarily. But when we really understand how great God is, when we understand that God is in everything, when we understand just how all-encompassing God is, the more that we understand that, hey, actually everything in life is a part of God. Everything that I do is service to God. Everything that I see reminds me of God. Therefore, any time that I have is actually not even mine. It's God's. When we understand like that, then we start to see clearly. And Arjuna is having this kind of experience right now. He's seeing clearly. He's seeing Krishna more clearly, and that clarity is is making his ego very small. He's understanding things in the rightful perspective. He's developing so much humility. He's realizing just how small he is. And then he says no one is equal to you. So how could anyone be greater than you? So in other words, Krishna's position, it's you can't even compare anything to it. There's no rival. There isn't any competition. It's unparalleled. Arjuna says this extends not just on earth, but throughout all the three worlds, meaning that there's nowhere you can go, materially or spiritually, where someone surpasses Krishna. And so Arjuna's kind of downloading all of this. This is all being just like downloaded to Arjuna's programming. And it's bringing a lot of clarity. Because again, when we understand that Krishna is infinitely greater than us, what happens naturally is that we stop trying to carry the burden of being the controller, being the center or the source of everything ourselves. There's relief in knowing I don't have to be God. I just have to reconnect with him. It's such a relief. Even in my own service, I find, I'm trying to get this not-for-profit going, this conscious collective, and we're planning programs all over. And yesterday, I had 3 letdowns. I can't even remember what they are right now. One of our programs got canceled because we didn't have enough people sign up. Another one, somebody bailed from something, and there was 3 things that if this was a material endeavor, it would have ruined my whole day. But now it's I'm sitting here and I can hardly even remember them. Not because I didn't care, because I certainly care, but just because it's I'm not holding on to it as if it's my own. And then this morning I woke up at 3:00, which doesn't happen every morning, but sometimes it does. And I just meditated for a few hours before this podcast. And I remember it was just in that chanting, which was just a few minutes ago, I was just feeling whatever you want, Krishna, wherever you want to take this or don't want to take this, and it was so sweet. That's the sweet part of the day, just that relationship, just that connection. And when that becomes your anchor and then naturally everything in life becomes service to that. And then naturally we don't have to hold on so tight to it, because that's not even the point of it anyway. We're just doing it as service. It's Krishna's. We've given it to Krishna. So whatever happens with it, we're just kind of watching the show. At the same time, engaged wholeheartedly, but we're not making it about us, because we understand deeply that it's actually not. It's about something so much deeper, so much bigger than that. And in that way, it's Krishna is yours. Do with it whatever you want. So it's kind of funny when I sat down this morning, again, usually if yesterday that would have been a job that I had, or, a material consciousness, it would have been a pretty terrible day. I'd be in a pretty sad spot right now. But it was wow, this is actually so nice. And there's nothing discouraging about it either. It's just oh, okay, let's just keep trying. Let's just keep trying and see what happens. So it's sweet. It really makes life so much better when we can give it all to Krishna and understand that we're not the controller, the center, the source of everything. That's exhausting. And it's not the way that we're designed. We're designed to serve the center, not be the center. It's you don't water the leaves of a plant, you water the roots. So in that way, we serve the center. We're not a leaf. We're nourished by serving the roots, by watering the roots. And in that way, the leaves are naturally nourished. We don't have to worry about it so much. It's quite beautiful. Okay, next verse. 44. Please just interrupt me if anybody has anything they'd like to share. Does anybody want to share anything before we move on? 44.
You are the Supreme Lord, to be worshipped by every living being. Thus I fall down to offer you my respectful obeisances and ask your mercy. As a father tolerates the impudence of his son, a friend the impertinence of a friend, or a husband the familiarity of his wife, please tolerate the wrongs I may have done you.
Thank you. So at this point, Arjuna finishes his request for forgiveness by offering obeisances and giving these three really relatable examples of how love naturally includes forgiveness. And this is all such mercy for us because we all need forgiveness. And he basically says, please forgive me the way loving relationships naturally forgive. And he gives these examples. He says, a father forgives the impulsiveness of a child. Friends tease each other and sometimes cross lines, but the friendship remains. Or anybody married knows this very well. A loving husband and wife, they may sometimes speak a little bit strongly or emotionally, but the love underneath is still deeper than that moment. And this is such an important point. Arjuna's not like minimizing his casual attitudes towards Krishna earlier. He's just saying it. He's not saying like it didn't matter. He's just saying I may have spoken too casually, but I did it out of love. And this is mercy, because with genuine intimacy, sometimes imperfect words are overlooked, right? Because the relationship itself is rooted in affection and trust. And we all experience this. When there's deep trust in a relationship, we tend to look beyond isolated words or actions, because we see the heart behind them. This this is a funny story because my husband and I will sometimes watch like dating shows together, like those reality dating shows. And my husband is just like very intuitive. Like he's one of those people that can like meet a person and know within like 5 minutes if he wants to like have a deeper relationship with them. He's just like very intuitive. So we're watching this show and like right off the bat he's like red flag, red flag, red flag. And I'm just like thinking like I say those things all the time and you never say red flag to me. like you married me and I act like that all the time. How are you saying that that's a red flag? But the difference is my husband and I have so much trust already built in the relationship. So if I do something or act insensitively or emotionally charged, that trust is already built in. Like he assumes, oh, she didn't mean any harm, or he knows that I care about him, or he knows my heart. So he just like doesn't even see it the same. Even though like I'm watching this and I'm like objectively like I literally did that exact same thing yesterday. And it's like this is what happens. Love creates this space for grace. But the opposite is true too. When trust is weak, everything changes. Every interaction can feel tense. Every mistake feels loaded. Even if it's a good action, somebody may be like suspicious of it if there's no trust. We've all, I know I have definitely had relationships like this too, where it's like no matter what you do, the person on the other side of the relationship is always like just assuming the worst. And it's like exhausting. And if you don't have a lot of confidence, you can even start to like it can be like it'd be like a self-fulfilling prophecy. You can start thinking that's actually true. It's really it's a difficult thing, when there's no trust in relationships. Right? It feels like you're walking through a minefield. Everything might be taken the wrong way. Right? But Arjuna's relationship with Krishna is based on deep love. So they have that trust. So he's praying, he's saying, please see my heart. Please forgive any ways I may have spoken improperly. And this is another practical lesson for us. Another reason why, whenever possible, when we're interacting with others, we should interact in a very thoughtful, respectful, caring way. This is why like culture is such an important, is so important. And it's Vedic culture is so beautiful. It's like it's people are just part of the culture is like if somebody comes to your house, you open your door to them, you cook for them, you give them a gift. It's just like all these really caring gestures that just build trust and build relationship. Yeah, and then when trust is strong, like little accidental mistakes don't destroy relationships. People give each other grace. So important. People understand like this, that wasn't malicious. They're just human. So this is like healthy relationships. This is healthy relationships, and healthy relationships aren't built on perfection, but they're built on sincerity, trust, humility, and the willingness to forgive. So we're seeing this gold star example of healthy relationship right here in front of us. A lot of us didn't have healthy relationships as we were growing up. Maybe didn't have like the most healthy our parents didn't have the most healthy relationships for us to like look up to and learn from. I know that's true for me. It's like, but we still have these examples. We have these examples in the Gita. We have these examples all over spiritual scriptures for us to learn from and for us to emulate. So that's where we are here, saying, forgive me, as because we have a lot of trust and love in this relationship. Please know my intentions were never malicious. Right. So now we're going to 1145. Whenever you're ready, Stella. You ready, Stella? Are you on mute?
Sorry.
No problem.
After seeing this universal form, which I have never seen before, I am gladdened, but at the same time, my mind is disturbed with fear. Therefore, please bestow your grace upon me and reveal again your form as the personality of Godhead, O Lord of Lords, O abode of the universe.
Thank you. So here Arjuna's being honest about about this experience and what it's felt like for him. He's saying, I'm amazed, I'm grateful, I know this is extraordinary. At the same time, I'm kind of terrified. And then this is human for him. Earlier Krishna said that no one has ever seen this universal form before. And now Arjuna repeats this realization back to him. He says this is something unprecedented, something incredibly rare, a special mercy. No one's ever seen this form of time. And you'll see this in other texts. There's Krishna reveals the universal form in different examples, but this particular form of time we don't see. This is unparalleled. So at first, when Arjuna's just seeing the vastness of the form, it was awe-inspiring. And when he's just seeing the vastness of creation, all the countless beings, the unimaginable power, everything existing within Krishna. I was like, it was amazing. But then the vision shifted and he began to see the destruction aspect of time. That was when the armies were being crushed. They were entering into destruction. There was like terrifying mouths like consuming everything. Remember, there was like soldiers marching into the mouth. They were chewing. There was even like a little blood. I mean, it was pretty gory. It was like a horror film, and then that horror film, it turned into like agitation and fear. We realize this horror film is not just something I'm watching on a screen. This is like my life. This is my reality. Please make it stop. you know, at the same time, the please make it stop was not out of fear. It was out of love. And this is where we are now. It's out of love because he just wants he just wants his friend back. No matter how great, no matter how powerful this is, he just wants his friend back. Right? His experience here shows that this unlimited power without intimacy is actually just quite overwhelming. And so this is his next request here. He says, please show me your personal form again. And this is interesting because materially speaking, we always think bigger is better. If someone upgrades from a tiny TV to a giant one with endless features, we think that's progress. This is our material conditioning, more power, more size, more spectacle. So from a material perspective, you would think the universal form would be like the highest possible revelation. But Arjuna, he doesn't want to stay there. Because a devotee is not simply looking for just an overwhelming display of power. That's not what a devotee is really interested in. A devotee is looking for relationship. Prabhupada would say, the devotees are not attracted to a godless display of opulence. Just meaning that power without intimacy, it never satisfies the heart. Many of us have had that experience in our lives. It's like you can have the most high-powered job, the nicest house, but if you don't have people to share it with, it's like everything feels empty. When the opposite, the inverse to that is actually not the same. When like if somebody has no power, no prestige, but they have a lot of love and connection in their life, a lot of intimacy, they can be quite happy. Right? So it's like, what's the common denominator to this happiness equation? It's this connection. It's this connection and this intimacy. And what is the highest connection we can have in this life? It's with the highest, right? With the greatest, with the source of everything. So that is what actually satisfies the heart to the highest degree. And the universal form is important here. It had its purpose. It had its place in the Gita. It establishes Krishna's supremacy beyond any doubt. It's like, this is God. This is God. This is the being that you want to have this ultimate relationship with. Obviously, he was the greatest. There's no one beyond him. Right? He's the greatest. He's the most powerful. Right? He's the benevolent. Right? So establish that. And these qualifications are important. In any time that you're looking to give somebody your heart, you got to make sure they're qualified. You find that on dating apps all the time. I met my husband on the dating app. I remember after I met my husband, my friends are sending me like, the people I would date, they would like Google their names, and then like send me all kinds of things on them, right? Like to make sure that they're qualified. I have some interesting stories around that too. Dating online is a whole thing. But anyway, we need to make sure that who we're giving our heart to is extremely qualified. So this is Krishna's qualification. This is establishing his supremacy, and he does it here, and it's unparalleled. Nobody else has done it. Nobody else will do it. He's only revealed this particular form this one time in this circumstance to Arjuna. This form that includes the time. So the lesson is complete now. This is important to establish, and Arjuna fully understands, as do we. This is the purpose, is to show us, because Arjuna kind of already knew. But here we are. You are the Lord of Lords, the shelter of the universe. No one's greater than you. Got it. That's established. Okay, so now he's like, okay, so now can we just go back to where you were my friend? Now his heart longs for something else, this personal form of Krishna, the form where love can actually be exchanged. Yeah, so this is where we are. What do you love to hear from you, Stella? Ooh, and college country, great.
Oh, when you were talking, I recalled, like when people really worship celebrities, and they feel like this, it's called, there's a word for it, like parasocial or something. Like they feel like they know the person and they really want to meet them, and they'll wait at the back of the stage or outside somewhere, or they'll come across them in real life. And then, and I've seen this happen, like actually seen it happen where the celebrity is just either drunk or in a bad mood, and they just are just like dismissive or something, and the person is like crushed. I mean,
Hmm.
their whole idea of this celebrity was false, kind of like, and it was an illusion. And it, when you were talking, I thought, yeah, they actually wanted a real personal relationship with that person. Like they would love to like have talk to them and have the person be friendly, and like, and suddenly become their friend, like that it like that's a natural consequence. And then they were crushed, because the
Hmm.
other celebrity's just a human, like they don't know them. I just thought of that in my mind when I saw that happen, the crushed feeling of someone who got dissed by
Yeah.
someone they worshiped.
Yeah. Yeah, it happens. It happens even like you can get into a deep relationship with somebody and you think you know them, and then it turns out, oh wait, this is not at all who I thought this person was. Yeah. So unlike any of those experiences that we will likely experience in this material life, that is not Krishna. And that is the beauty of this relationship with God. And this chapter, he's establishing his qualification over and beyond. And we're seeing firsthand through Arjuna just how humbling that is. This is the person that we can truly, that our heart can rest with, and that in that we can find the ultimate connection, fulfillment, peace, right? That we're searching this whole world endlessly for. No, it's already here. It's right in front of us. We just have to turn towards it. Krishna's just establishing it, like, again and again for us here. We're seeing that again and again in different ways, in all different ways in the Gita. We're seeing that, but in this chapter, we're seeing just his Krishna's everything. God is everything. Thank you, Kalachanji.
Thank, thanks so much. These are such great points you're making about relationship and trust. So, thoughts and a question. I was thinking, well, in how important it is when trust is built in a relationship that we honor that trust, how important that is for the relationship. And then, well, our relationship with Krishna, it's a relationship, so it's reciprocal. And so I'm like wondering, what does it mean for us to honor that Krishna's trust? Because we are trusting
Mm,
in Krishna, but in some sense, Krishna is trusting in us. And I'm not sure what
mm,
that means. And I'm really wondering about that. And how do we honor that trust?
mm. Yeah, that's a really good question. Whenever you say you have a question, I always get a little bit nervous. Like, let's call Chanji.
It might not.
This question. No, this is a good question though. And you know, just like a parent, just like my daughter's not a good example because she's too young to really know, but when I tell her like don't walk out the door and play in the street, and I trust that she's not going to do that. Like I give her instruction to keep her safe, and because I love her, and I trust that she's not going to do that. You know, Similarly, Krishna gives us instruction through his scripture, And the trust is in that we're gonna follow it. So he gives us instructions for getting to know him more, getting to deepen that relationship, because the security, the love rests in that relationship. So he gives us all kinds of instructions for getting to know him more. He gives us instructions for living dharmically, so it's the trust, and we see in our own lives, the more that we live in alignment with those instructions, the closer that relationship is, the more shelter that we have, the more that we experience Krishna's presence, the more reciprocal, the more that we can hear his guidance. So that trust rests in his instructions, and our commitment to living in alignment with them. And that doesn't mean that it's always perfect, but we're committed, and we desire, and we try.
And
Yeah.
since he does know that our hearts, he's not going to misunderstand if we stumble a little bit or like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Just like my husband, when you know when I mess up quite a bit and am too direct, or whatever, he understands my heart. Same
That,
with Krishna. If
that's such a great answer. And also it it shows that it's really in a way easier for us to do that with Krishna because he gives us instructions. I mean, how does your husband, he doesn't come with a whole set of instructions for you, you know, or you for him. I mean, I hope not,
Yeah,
but
right. Well, actually, I wouldn't mind. Sometimes
right.
I just want that. Like, just
Exactly.
give me.
Like we have to suss that out in every relationship. What are
Yeah,
the sort of hidden instructions here? But Krishna is right there with them. So great. That's great. Thank you.
yeah, yeah. He does. He gives us so many opportunities. Yeah, thank you. Really beautiful question. Really beautiful thoughts and reflections. Thank you, Nancy.
Yeah, thank you. It's a great question, Kalachandji, and wonderful teachings. I just kept on. There are two things that I thought of. One, what where you had mentioned, or I think Shraddhanjali was talking about, oh, you're worshiping some idol, and when you meet them and they're not what you expect, it's like crushes you. But I also have this experience where you have a little child who all of a sudden sees their teacher in the supermarket and they're completely stunned. Like they think that they actually live at the school, that they exist only at the school, that they don't understand that they actually have a life. And I think that I always feel that Krishna wants me to be authentic. Krishna wants me to rage when I feel that something's unfair. I've been on my phone because my brother has been in the hospital for quite some time, and all of a sudden they're finding blood clots, and they can't give him blood thinner because he had the brain injury, and now they're going to go do surgery today to put some filtering system into I don't know where to try to stop the blood clots from moving. And you're like, just let it go. We just have to have this faith, and Krishna allows us to rail or mourn or feel. And I think that authenticity is where the trust and the faith grows. I think
Mhm.
Krishna doesn't want me to just be a stoic that just says, well, it's going to all work out fine. But I do believe that that's the answer. It's going to work out fine, whatever that means. But um, And I think Krishna wants to go back to this two-word form, which is very special, for us, because he wants us to forget that, that extreme majesty, so that we can have an authentic relationship and feel like you are my friend. I can put my arms around you, and you could put your arms around me too and hold me. So, it's a beautiful, beautiful section of the Gita. Thank you so much, Radha, for your wisdom.
Mm. Yeah, authenticity. Authenticity is just so important in our spiritual lives. Just being where we are with no, you know, just clean, just who we are. I have a really sweet relationship with my boss, who is like quite a business person. He's like a very impressive businessman. And I just have this relationship with him where I just tell him whatever's on my mind, like just completely unfiltered. And he always calls me simple. He says, "You're just so simple. You just always say what's on your mind." And the other day I told him something, I don't remember what it is. And he's like, this is why you're so spiritually advanced, because you just say whatever's, you're just real about everything, which is like, I don't know that that's always necessary in every relationship. But the point being that, like, there's the more honest and real we can be with ourselves and others, in a compassionate and loving way, of course, the the more spiritual advancement we'll make, because it requires that. Krishna's not looking for like a pretense. He's not looking for us to, like he knows our heart, so we can't even fake it. Like Krishna knows. So just to be where we are, and to maybe it's not where we want to be, but that's okay too, right? We just keep trying, and in the meantime, we don't try to be somewhere that we're not, because we're never going to make progress there. We're just going to be stunted, right? So anyway, when my boss said it, I was like, no, 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 no. That's it was a funny thing for him to say, but I just the way he said it, it was like a realization. He's like, oh, that's advance. That's advancement. Just that simplicity. That's what he calls it. That simplicity of heart, because your heart, you're not trying to protect yourself, or you're just simple, just clean in your interactions and your experiences, feelings, emotions. Aaron.
Hare Krishna. I really appreciate this point, Nancy, about authenticity. Obviously, I feel we see Arjuna being such a great example of that, right? Like he's never just this like unaffected sage of steady mind who's just like there, like, ah, yes, the ups and the downs. Like he's like reacting in every moment, and like um he's also not just like obviously living this cushy life alongside Krishna. Like he's in it. Like there's really intense things happening to him and he reacts. And so I really just appreciate both that point and his example that, like, yeah, we should be reacting. And like, obviously, like you said, Radha, with kindness and compassion, and going back to that steadiness, as soon as we can, but also not ignoring it. I also just feel like a little mad that like I haven't learned some of these, like there's such basic lessons about like trust and like community and association, and it's like it's so beautiful, and I feel like it is really what's missing in our like society and education. Like where do you learn these things, but like also I went to Catholic school for so many years and like Sunday school after that. And I'm sure the answer is I wasn't ready at the time and I was a kid, and obviously I'm an adult now, and like things land very differently. But it's just really making me appreciate like the simple truths that like can come out of like really are the point of like religion and or spiritual life, that like we're talking about like the universal form, and like the lessons that we're walking away with are about relationship and trust. And it's like, damn, that's like it's so beautiful and so practical, and I'm just almost mad that like it's not like more permeated through society, right? Like we don't, there's just like such a lack of an emphasis on what is obviously like the most important building blocks.
Mm. Yeah. Such beautiful points. And I totally agree wholeheartedly. I wish these things would have been taught more clearly in schools. And this is even like, I mean, if we have, depending on how deep we want to get into it, but like culture, like I said, culture is important. Or like in Indian, like I have quite a lot of friends with Indian bodies, and they like do not get divorced. It's like a thing, it's like they do not get divorced. It's not even a question. And it's just kind of the way that society is built, it just creates this stability for families and people. And I can see, there's two sides to it. Because then you can be in a loveless marriage and you're still married. But at the same time, like this, there's reasons that the culture is set up the way that it is. And it's to provide that stability for people and children, and so that these things can develop, so that they can have loving relationships and feel safe, and trust can develop, and then they don't get off on their own and feel like everybody's going to leave them because their parents left them, or just like we have so many issues in our culture, our society, because we don't know these things, and they're not built into they're not even like it's not like glorified. It's like it's not like cool. So yeah, there's a lot of, I totally agree. Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, should we do one more? Let's do 46.
O universal form, O thousand-armed Lord, I wish to see you in your four-armed form, with helmeted head and with club, wheel, conch, and lotus flower in your hands. I long to see you in that form.
Thank you. So specifically here, Arjuna asks to see Krishna's Narayan form, the beautiful four-handed form from the spiritual world. And the unlike the universal form, which is connected to the temporary material manifestations, the forms of Narayana in the Vaikuntha planets, which are like spiritual planets, which are like planets in the spiritual sky, but these forms are eternal and transcendental. And these forms hold the conch shell, the disc, the lotus, the mace, in different arrangements, and each arrangement corresponds to different names and expansions of the Lord, which is just like kind of a side detail. Right? But the point is that all of them are ultimately one with Krishna. So this request is deeply significant. Now Arjuna has seen the infinite cosmic power of God, right? The destructive force of time, the vastness of creation itself. And after seeing all of that, what he longs for most is still this personal, loving form of the Lord. Because ultimately, the heart is not fulfilled merely by being overwhelmed. It's fulfilled through relationship. So by the end of this section, Arjuna's seen something that no one else has ever seen. He witnessed the universal form, the totality of creation, the terrifying force of time, the unimaginable greatness and supremacy of Krishna. And after seeing all of that, what he asks for is not more spectacle, not more power, not more cosmic revelation. He asked to see Krishna's personal form again. He's like, that was beautiful. That was great. All the things, but please let me see your personal form again. Why? Because while power can overwhelm the mind, relationship is what satisfies the heart. And I'm saying this so many times, you're probably like, okay, I get it. But the reality is when we walk off this call and we walk into our lives, so much of our days is spent seeking power, seeking prestige, seeking things related to that. When at the end of the day, if we realize that it was actually relationship that satisfied the heart, And what is the highest relationship? Relationship with God. We'd see ourselves put more of our time and energy into that. And so I'm saying this many times because we all need to hear it many times, so that it can transform from this knowledge to lived wisdom, because that's what it takes. It takes hearing it. It takes discussing it. It takes living it and seeing, oh, wait, I spent all my time on chasing that career. And actually I'm not even fulfilled. I'm empty. I'm completely empty. So the universal form establishes Krishna's supremacy beyond doubt. Right? This is qualification. This is qualification for our beloved. But it's Krishna's personal form, the form of relationship, love, friendship, intimacy, that brings Arjuna peace. Right? This is the same for us. At the end of the day, we're not just looking for more information, more control, more certainty. We're looking for connection. We want to know that beyond all that complexity of life, there's someone who knows us, who sees us, who loves us, and can be trusted. And so this is what makes bhakti so unique. It's not sectarian. We're not pushing, our God. It's all the same God. But bhakti is just loving devotion to God. That's what we're trying to cultivate here. Even the purpose of the knowledge, the purpose of us all being here is not so that we can get smarter in knowing the Gita. It's so that we can develop relationship with God. And this knowledge helps us do that. But it's certainly not the goal. So in bhakti, God's not presented as just an abstract force to fear or admire from a distance, or read about once a week when it's time. No, he's ultimately revealed as a person we can have a relationship with. And this is maybe one of the deeper invitations of this whole section. It's not just to be impressed by God, but to move closer to him. And this is ultimately the invitation of the entire Gita. But all of this knowledge helps us get there. Yes, Kalachanji.
How is it that Arjuna asks to see Krishna's four-armed Vishnu form rather than his two-armed original form?
It's funny. I had that same question when I was studying this, and I was kind of looking into it to see, because then Krishna shows him his two-armed form, and it just says that Krishna knew that Arjuna really wanted to see his two-armed form.
Exactly, yeah.
Because his four-armed form is his Vaikuntha form, so it's associated with a little bit more awe and reverence. And his two-armed form is his more intimate form, like his Vrindavan form, and he's his friend, and it's a little bit it's not as much awe and reverence as the Vaikuntha form. So I have to say to that, I don't know why he asked, because I didn't find an answer that was satisfying to me when I was looking into that too. But I had the same question. Though I will tell you something that came to my mind that I know is true, is that we have instruction to worship Radha Krishna like Lakshmi, like in that mood of awe and reverence. We have instruction to worship them like that, because we're not so qualified to approach them in such an intimate way. Do you know this? I'm sure you know this, or you've heard this. Yeah. So I thought that's interesting. And I don't know, maybe Arjuna was being humble. I don't know. I can only speculate, and I don't want to. I don't want to.
Radha could also, because he might have still been feeling a little awe and reverence. So
Yeah.
it was like an intermediary form where it could be both a human form, but also with a little awe. Like he's gradually coming down from that intense,
a transition, one
like a
step at a time.
transitional form. Yeah.
I like that.
I ask because I also have been asked that question more than once, and I also looked all over the place to get a conclusive answer. And yeah, so thank you very much.
I'm glad I'm in good company. Next time I see Chaitanya Tirana, I'll ask him that.
I have to run, but
Yeah.
I wondered because the forearm form is the form of the Paratma, right? In our heart. We just did. So I wondered whether it was that Arjuna is asking for him to come and to see the form of it in his heart, rather than the ones standing in front. I don't know. That's just a
Wow.
thought.
Yeah. Could
Sorry,
be.
I have to go.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. So nice. Anybody else? Any final reflections before we end for the day? Such beautiful shares. Thank you. Thank you all for coming. And I look forward to seeing you on Monday. Have a great weekend.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare
Thank you.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.